There are thousands of miles of shoreline in and around Parry Sound, which could take you an entire season to explore. Last week, we finished off in Deep Bay, so today we continue our way up towards Franklin Island. Once you round Lighthouse Point, you will see the sandy shores of Killbear Provincial Park. Killbear is a big park, 4,300 acres big to be exact. From the lighthouse to the far side of Kilcorsey Bay is another 4 kilometers. This was where I learned to cliff dive. My father brought us up here in the 80s as kids, and years later, we come back with friends in high school. We loved it. Between the hiking trails, flat rocks for tanning, and clear water for swimming, Killbear is one of my top favorite campgrounds in Ontario. Today, there are over 1,000 campsites spread over 7 different campgrounds. These days, of course, we come by boat, which provides an entirely different perspective. Instead of hanging around Herald Point in the boat getting rocked by traffic, we continued west to Kilcorsey Bay. There are plenty of spots to anchor in front of Killbear, but my favorite is this little bay just south of Kilcorsey. Midsummer, this place is normally packed, but in October, we were the only ones here. My wife and I like to anchor here for the day on our way to Franklin Island. The bottom is sandy, and the flat rocks, warmed by the sun, are perfect for afternoon naps. But this was not our final destination today. Far from it. We were planning to take this little pocket coupe further north to a cool little resort on the north side of Franklin Island. With 2 more stops in between, it was time to boogie. But just before we hauled anchor, I noticed the schooner. With light winds, we had to take a closer look. We might be a powerboat show, but there is something majestic about a schooner with her sails full and nothing but the horizon ahead. What a day. Fair winds. There are a few ways to get from Killbear to Franklin Island and Snug Harbour. The outer channel is stunning when it's calm, but if it's blowing it all from the west, you might want to hug the shoreline and sneak through Canoe Channel, which is exactly what we did. Canoe Channel won't save you any time, but it will allow you a reprieve from strong westerlies. It was calm today, and we simply wanted to enjoy the scenery. This is why Georgian Bay is so well regarded for cruising. As you exit canoe, stick to the channel markers. There are plenty of rocks around here, but it is well marked with both red and green marker buoys. Snug Harbour is a great place to come in for dinner or just to reprovision a little bit. There's a famous fish restaurant called Gillies here. This is some of the best fresh pickerel you'll get on the bay. And it's not far from Franklin Island, it's not far from Parry Sound. If you've got a little bit bigger boat, you're going to want to park at the government dock. There's not a lot of space for too many boats over 25 feet, and Gillies is so popular it can get pretty busy, so not a bad idea to make a reservation in advance. Gillies is a family-run restaurant with a mini marina and small grocery store. They opened just before the May long weekend and shut down on Labor Day. Unfortunately, we called ahead for an interview, but missed them by a week. I do, however, have some photos I took when here last. After leaving Snug Harbour, our next destination was across the channel in Regatta Bay. Oh, one of my favorite places is Regatta Bay. A little piece of paradise, Regatta Bay on Franklin Island. Who says fall boating can't be warm? It's the 8th of October in Ontario near Parry Sound, and it's 14 degrees today. And with the sun out, it feels more like 25. But unlike the middle of August, there is nobody around. We have the entire anchorage to ourselves. And that's not something that happens often with Regatta Bay. This is a very popular spot. To get to shore, you'll need a tender of some sort. On our first trip, we were able to anchor close enough to shore to use the paddleboard as a makeshift ramp. But there are a few small docks in Regatta Bay that, if unoccupied, will afford shore access. If you do come to Regatta Bay and it's a little bit too crowded for you, later in the show, we're going to show you Not-So-Secret Bay, otherwise known as Windsor Bay on the other side of Franklin Island. And back in there, you can usually always find a spot, as long as you know how to thread your way in. And that's what we'll show you later in the show. Not all 25-foot boats have a windlass or an enormous anchor locker, but the NC 795 sure does. And is it ever nice? With a big remote, it's really easy to retrieve the anchor. If I was planning to anchor often, I would definitely upgrade this anchor to a Rockwood or Vulcan. Sure beats hauling it up by hand. Join us later in the show as we continue our journey around Franklin Island and into some beautiful anchorages on our Fall Colors tour of Georgian Bay. This is the latest generation hybrid from Cruiser's yachts, the 38 GLS. The GLS in this new 38 stands for Grand Luxury Sport. And if you look at the design elements, you'll see some from the Cantius line and some from the Sport Boat line. And if you can believe, the beam on this 38-foot boat is 12 foot 6 inches. Now that gives you great stability in a sea state, but it also gives you an enormous cockpit. And that's where all the entertaining's really gonna happen on this boat. It's the above deck space that is just incredible. Now this boat's outboard powered. There will be a stern drive version down the road. But honestly, if you're not running a tender and you're gonna run some distance, the outboard version has the bigger fuel tank, 335 gallons to be exact. And that's gonna give you some incredible range. Cruising speed's about 35 miles an hour. Top speed's gonna be 53 with a moderate load. Joystick control is really crucial with outboard engines. They don't produce as much thrust as a counter-rotating stern drive at low RPM. The joystick allows all 3 engines to operate independently. And Cruisers has made joystick standard equipment on all of their boats now. Simply put the engines in neutral, grab the joystick, and it immediately activates. Twist the joystick to rotate the GLS. Push in any direction for translational movements. And with triples, there really is no need for a bow thruster. You can do everything from the stern of the boat. The challenge with outboards is always platform space, but not with a beach door. At the push of a button, in a couple of seconds, you now have access to the water from the starboard side and a whole new swim platform. The backrest on the lounge pivots, so you can now face the beach door at anchor in the water. There is seating for at least 10, with unobstructed access to either the platform or the bow. The galley is to port and features an inlay sink, stainless fridge, and optional grill. There is storage under all seats with clever hinges that allow the seat to open all the way in one smooth motion. You get all this storage space down here because there are no engines down here. Just left of the helm is a sliding door to access accommodations below deck. Notice the separate sliding screen door is full length to maximize airflow while keeping the bugs out? Just another detail that so many others omit. Below, we find a convertible dinette with a second fridge, microwave, and TV mounted on a detachable pedestal. A hull-side window to starboard features a blind to help control sunlight, while most of the lighting comes from indirect LEDs. The electrical panel is hidden behind a seat cushion. The standing wet head is well lit with a hull-side window, and the large vanity sink is yet another reminder that Cruisers pays attention to how their customers use their boats. The primary berth is located amidships. It may not be full beam and doesn't have any hull-side windows, but it does feature a wide opening and a full queen bed, with climate controls right at the entrance. The cabin is a great place to escape from the sun or the rain, and there is enough room for 4 people to have a quick bite down here. The table lowers, and there's a filler cushion, and this converts into a berth. But when you look around, you wonder, how are you going to fit an adult in this berth? Well, Cruisers has done 2 really cool things. Slide the cushions out of the way, and the bulkhead lifts up to expose storage for the filler cushion. It also provides room for your feet. Back on the water, we got a chance to pick up the pace a bit. Time to plane with the 300s is a blistering 5.5 seconds, which is very impressive for an 18,000-pound boat. But the basic specs only tell part of the story. Mercury's latest 300 horsepower V8 Verados are standard equipment on the 38 GLS. These V8s are 200 pounds lighter than the 350 horse supercharged Verados. That's 600 fewer pounds hanging off the transom. V8 Verados also get the latest advanced midsection with a damping system that is not only quiet and smooth, but also features selectable sport exhaust for times when you want to hear that V8 music. So now you can get somewhere quick, drop an anchor, and bring 6, 8, 10, even 12 people with you and entertain them all day in comfort. And if you want to stay the weekend, there's enough space down below for 2 or 4 people to sleep quite comfortably. The helm on this boat is absolutely fantastic. You know, of all these years of Cruisers development, they've just nailed the helm. The windshield sight lines are just below where I am standing. But when I sit, let the bolster down and have a seat, I'm staring directly through the windshield. Large flush mount Simrad electronics take care of the system's info and navigation. One of 3 stereo remotes is located just left of the waterproof switches, which are LED lit for instant status. Controls are mounted on a lower panel that doubles as an armrest, with an inductive phone charging pad just behind the trim tab switches. The double-wide helm chair has a flip-up bolster and gorgeous polished wood footrest. Storage below the helm seat can house an optional ice maker. Another great thing about these Verados, you can trim them completely out of the water. Very handy if you don't have a lift, especially in salt water. And I really like the fact that Cruisers has made the swim platform large enough to walk past the outboards even when they're trimmed all the way up. The hardtop on the 38 GLS is big. In fact, it extends aft to almost cover all of the cockpit seating. But the sun is always moving, and if you need a little more shade, this power sunshade is optional, and it extends all the way back to almost cover the entire swim platform. Power sun tops take a while to open, but this one opens in a cinch. Unlike an Express, the GLS has more seating in the bow for 6, maybe even 7 people, which for me is a perfect spot to lounge on the hook. But my favorite spot to sit has to be these pedestals. While they're an option on the boat, they wouldn't be an option for me, because this is the perfect spot to entertain from. As a host, you've got to be dynamic, you got to move around a little bit. And this lets you still be part of the conversation, but you're sitting at the bar. This is one of the best cockpits for entertaining on the market today. If you're looking for something with a bit of speed that can entertain a group over the weekend, but also want the option to stay overnight on occasion, the all-new 38 GLS should be at the top of your list. Launch ramps can be super intimidating, but with a couple of tips, we should be able to make them a lot easier. The first thing I do is remove all the tie downs. Next, I want to make sure I turn the battery switch on. That way, we can easily start the engine or trim it up if the skeg's a bit low. And if the tilt lock's engaged, you gotta disengage it. I like to trim the engine down a little, but not too far the skeg can touch the bottom. And now is a great time to make sure all the drain plugs are back in. This is a pontoon, and there aren't any, so we don't have to worry about it. Before the boat goes in the water, it's a good idea to add some fenders and some lines. Unplugging the trailer lights can help avoid a short or a blown bulb. Now, some people like to undo the winch strap before they launch the boat, but I like to leave it attached just in case. Attached, but loose enough it won't put pressure on the rail when the stern starts to float. If I have someone to help, I typically give them a stern line to help keep the aft from drifting around as it starts to float. If your tow vehicle has 4-wheel drive, now is the time to engage it. How far back down the ramp really depends on the boat and might require a little trial and error. Once far enough, put your vehicle in park and engage the parking brake. Beware though, unless you have 4-wheel drive, your parking brake is only holding the rear wheels on what could be a slippery launch ramp. But in 4-wheel drive, at least one of the front wheels will help the rears hold the truck in place. The downside to leaving the winch line attached, you might have to get wet to undo it. But if you stay close, you can usually step aboard right from the dock. Now, if you're not too deep, the boat should stay right there. But be careful, because it could start to float away if you're too deep. Once aboard, fire up the engine and slowly reverse off the trailer. Sometimes you can pull the boat off the trailer with the lines, but I like to have the engine running just in case the wind gets a hold of the boat. Once free of the trailer and tied up, we pull the trailer out. If trailer parking isn't close, don't forget to hook the lights up before driving back on the street. The trick to retrieving any boat is to position the trailer deep enough that you don't have to load the winch too much, but shallow enough that the bunks help align the boat along the way. I like to fully soak the bunks first to reduce friction when winching, then pull it back out so that about 1/4 of the bunks are above the water. Submerge the bunks too far and the stern might float to one side, ensuring your boat will sit crooked on the trailer. Every trailer is a bit different, so this can take some trial and error to get just the right depth. The trailer can be hard to see from the helm, so it is really handy to have a spotter to hold a line and help slowly guide the boat on. With the engine trimmed up, a little throttle can help position the boat further up the bunks. Be wary that your prop wash doesn't disturb other boats. Use the winch to pull your boat up the last few inches. With a little practice, you might not need to use the winch at all. Now, before we leave, we want to make sure the boat is all the way on the trailer because that can affect the load balance. We've got a little gap, but our bunks are wet, so it should just winch all the way on. All that is left is to secure the fenders and lines, tie down the boat at all corners, and hook the lights back up. Depending on how far you need to trailer, it's not a bad idea to stow the bimini so the wind doesn't damage it at higher speeds. Welcome back to our Fall Colors tour around Franklin Island on Georgian Bay in the 25-foot Jeanneau NC 795. Over the course of the last few days, we have hit a number of destinations in and around Parry Sound. Today, we were on the final leg of our journey. Earlier in the show, we made our way from Parry Sound all the way out to Regatta Bay on the southeast side of Franklin Island. This is where we will continue our journey. After a long day on the water, we were looking forward to grilling up a few sausages and chilling on land with a campfire. Fortunately, Rockwood Resort was still open and willing to accommodate a couple of boaters in October. Nestled at the top of Sand Bay on the north side of Franklin Island, Rockwood is a cottage resort in a protected bay with enough dock space for a few medium-sized boats.
We've got 10 housekeeping cottages, and we run pretty much through May through ice up. So our cottages are cottagey. We try and style them in a nice Georgian Bay fashion, but you've got all the amenities you need to make your own meals, hang out, and enjoy Georgian Bay.
Most of the cottages are a 2 or 3 bedroom. Ours had a bunk over a queen and could sleep 5. Coming from the city, the contrast is striking. Want to slow the world down a bit? This is the place to do it.
Majority of our customers come from Toronto area, some from the northern US as well.
It is hard to believe that such a tranquil place is but a 2.5-hour drive from Toronto, where the bustling sounds of the city transform into the peaceful sounds of the bay.
In peak season, we rent for week minimums, and we're between $1,200 and $1,400. And then in the off season, we're about $200 a night.
I would pay $200 a night just to have a hot tub and campfire up here.
We lovingly call it the redneck hot tub. It's wood-fired, and we fill it every day out of the bay.
So the water's fresh right out of the bay every single day?
You got it.
Smooth, flat rocks are to be expected around here, but Rockwood had another surprise, a big, sandy beach.
The beach is great for kids, great for adults too, but it's kind of a rarity. This area, we've got more sand, so we do get a nice beach here, nice, easy incline into the water.
Since the beach faces southeast, the sun warms it all day.
We're right on the north edge of Franklin Island, so crown land galore, canoeing, kayaking, swimming, boating, world-class fishing. You got it all up here.
If you don't own a boat, not to worry. You can drive up and rent a boat from Zach for $90 a day. As the sun started to fade, we set about grilling our food and building a fire. A full moon over the bay and a few tunes on the Bluetooth speaker kept us up fairly late. But what a way to wind down the day. After a late night soak in the hot tub and a restful sleep, we awoke to an incredible sunrise. This would be our last day on the water and would culminate with a paddleboard ride in Windsor Bay. But first, I wanted to check out the famous lighthouse on Red Rock, just south of the Mink Islands. The winds are light. We still have a 4-foot swell. It shows you gotta be a little careful on Georgian Bay. But the 795, she's all sealed up, so even though we're getting a little spray, we're bone dry in here. Such a cool boat. Well, there's Red Rock, famous lighthouse protecting big ships from a nasty set of rocks just north of us. Red Rock Lighthouse went operational in 1881, replacing the original lighthouse built on Old Tower Island in 1870. The Red Rock location was ideally positioned close to the shipping lane, but its exposure to any westerly weather meant it took a beating. In severe storms, the sea could break over the entire lighthouse. And after only a decade, its wooden cribwork needed repair. It was rebuilt in 1894 and again in 1912. Today, the 57-foot tall cylindrical tower, built out of reinforced concrete, continues to light safe passage through the rocks around the Mink Islands. This is not something you want to do without a set of charts, and without a chart plotter to know exactly where you are. Because it goes from 50 feet to 5 feet in about 1/4 of an inch. 5 kilometers northeast of Red Rock is the western shore of Franklin Island and the entrance to Windsor Bay. We were first introduced to this secret bay by a boating couple we met at Big Sound. They asked if we'd ever been to a place they called Not So Secret Bay. and it is now on our top 3 list for Georgian Bay. Windsor Bay is a little tricky to access. You have to steer around a few rocks, and it's a good idea to put a spotter on the bow. But once inside, there are a dozen completely protected spots to drop the anchor. It's inside of Franklin Island, which can be a bit exposed. The entrance does face southwest, so you've got to be a bit careful coming in. But once you wheel around the corner here, it is completely protected. Now, it's called Not So Secret Bay because, well, if you look at the charts alone, you might not venture in here. You basically have to be brought in by someone else. And that's exactly what happened to us. And I've seen 5 or 6 45 and 50-foot aft cabins moored in here, not more than a few feet from the rocks, where you could step off the swim platform and right onto shore. Pick up a couple of climbing cams of various sizes. They can lock into cracks in the rock and hold plenty of weight to keep a stern line tight. I've got an old, maybe 8-year-old Jimmy Sticks that, as you can see, rolls up into a tiny little ball, perfect for traveling by boat. There are several inland lakes on the island that you can paddle and portage to, including Eagle Lake, Beaver Lake, and Lily Lake. But my favorite spot is the southernmost end of Windsor Bay. Just past a narrow channel that is too shallow for most boats, the bay opens a little, and there is a small rocky island that you can stop on to rest if need be. The water is clear, and you can often see the odd lake trout sunning themselves near the surface. When the sun is shining, this beautiful sanctuary can be difficult to leave. Not to worry, we'll be back.